the only Acharya in our Sampradaya that I am aware of for the past 800 years who chose multiple successors, who had a multiple center organization and chose multiple successors, was Madhva Acarya. He had 8 moths in Udupi and another 2 outside of Udupi. At each center, he had a sannyasi disciple managing that center. When it was time for him to leave this world, he authorized the sannyasi manager of each center to become the next Acharya for their one center. He gave written instructions on how they were to continue their individual successions. Each center was already separately managed, and now each one began their own separate disciplic succession. But they all followed the written instructions and written down instructions that were left by Madhva Acarya on how to carry on with their own separate succession. That system has worked out so well that it is still in place today, over 700 years later. If Srila Prabhupada followed the example set by Madhva Acarya on how to set up multiple successor gurus where there are multiple ashram centers, if he had followed his example, then each temple president would have become a guru for their own temple. Or, since Prabhupada had established a GBC, he would have named the GBCs to be the guru for their zone, for the number of temples that are in their zone, like the zonal Acharya system. But doing that would have divided ISKCON into completely many separate ashrams, either individual temples or individual zones, where each one had their own disciplic line. Each ashram, whether it be a Sempra temple or the temple zones, would have their own guru. And they would have been the top authority, the master of that ashram, that temple, or that zone. There would have been no more GBC. Just as MadvAcarya did not have a GBC sitting on top of all those 10 moths and on top of the gurus of those moths. No, the gurus, those sannyasis he said would become guru, they then became the master of that moth. They became the full top authority for that center. But they all followed the system of disciplic succession that MadvAcarya wrote down and left them to follow. But if Srila Prabhupada had done that, there would have been no more GBC. There would have been no single ISKCON mission anymore. And so that situation is completely different than what we have in ISKCON today. Obviously, Srila Prabhupada left no such instructions that we were to follow such a system. He never left instructions on ISKCON was to be divided up by centers or by zones, and that there'll be now one guru for each zone or center, and there'll no longer be a GBC. In fact, what his instructions he did leave is that ISKCON would remain as a single, non-incorporated entity made up of separate and individual incorporated centers, but under a single unincorporated managing authority, the GBC. And that GBC, he said, will be the ultimate authority for the entire system of ashrams, for the entire organization. And he left no instruction at all regarding any future guru or gurus in ISKCON. Nothing. Not one comment. What to speak of any clear and definite instructions about how a future ISKCON were to function with either a single guru successor or multiple gurus. Nothing at all, period.